So in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a look at the different tools that we can use to display our assets and also keep them organized on the platform as well. All right. So we know that our assets include the different content types on the platform: web content, documents and media, message boards, blogs, etc. All right. So let's take a look at what options we have for, again, keeping them organized and displaying them on our pages. Okay, so we're going to start with document storage because document storage is a little bit unique. All right. Like many of the other assets, we do have the ability to provide folders for our documents, obviously keep them organized, similar to what you would do on your own operating system and your own file system. Okay. But documents also give you the ability to create or add repositories as well. Okay. And these repositories can be managed in the documents and media section of site administration. Okay. There are different kinds of documents that we can include as well. So one of the features that we talked about in the previous section was metadata. And not only is there some metadata that we can use in common with the other assets, but there's some special metadata that we can add to documents as well. Okay. We do that through the use of what are called document types. And essentially what document types allow you to do is identify what kind of document we want to add. So for example, this is a PDF, but it's a contract specifically, okay? And then alongside of that, we can go ahead and include some metadata that needs to be filled out by those who are managing our documents, all right? What this allows us to do is to store data in the database corresponding to that particular document and to search and manage based off of that information as well, all right? So this is one of the sort of special features specifically in documents and media. All right, but we also have, like I said, those repositories, and we have document folders as well to keep them organized. All right, so all of this comes out of the box. It makes it easy for you to manage and even display your documents. Now, when you're managing your content, remember that a site itself is a group of content and pages. And what that means is content created in a specific site is scoped to that specific site. Okay, so if I have the Livingston Bali Hotel or Resort and the Livingston Bavarian Hotel or Resort sites, and they're separate, okay, if I create a promotion in the Livingston Bali site, it's not going to be by default accessible to the Livingston Bavarian site, okay? I would actually need to be in the Bali site in order to see that content. Now, of course, there are ways in which you can share resources and things along those lines, but it's important to note the distinction between the two sites when creating content, okay? For those of you who want to create content that is available to all of the sites, we do have a global site, and that is a place where you can create some content and make it globally accessible to all of these sites, okay? Now, along with the site scope itself, once we sort of dig into the individual site, like I mentioned, assets like documents and media, as well as any of the other assets, have folders or at least a folder concept. Okay, so for example, some of the names may differ, like message boards. You have message board categories, and those categories include some of your message board threads. Okay, this is essentially a folder. It groups the threads inside of the category. You can permission it just like you can a folder, and you can manage them similarly to a folder as well. All right, so for web content, documents, and media, you have folders. For message boards, you have things like categories. For wikis, you have things called wiki nodes. Okay, all of these are going to be a similar concept with making sure that you can keep your assets organized. Now, when it comes to display, like I mentioned earlier, each asset has its own corresponding widget. So if we have web content, we have a web content display widget. If we have documents and media, we have a documents and media display widget, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so you can be sure if you're working with those assets, you can go ahead and place them on the page, and there will be corresponding widgets to display that content on the page. Otherwise, there are a number of tools for sort of aggregating the assets and displaying them in a way that is configurable. For example, we have the asset publisher. All right, the asset publisher allows you to choose what you want to display and how you want to display it. Okay, there are two modes for the asset publisher. There is the manual and dynamic. Okay, manual allows you to essentially specifically choose which assets you would like to display in a list, and dynamic allows you to actually set up a self-updating feed. Okay, in dynamic, you can choose which assets you want to show up in your feed. You can choose what metadata you might want to require with your assets, and you can actually determine how you want to display it. So for example, you can choose how many you want to display, if there's pagination, if you want to show date information, author information, other metadata, etc. Okay, so I would definitely encourage you to take a look at the Asset Publisher. It is a very helpful tool for determining how to display your assets on any given site. Okay, so to recap, we have our assets, which are going to be, again, our different content types, and they have some common features as well as some distinguishing features here and tools that are available to us. Okay, so for example, documents and media can take advantage of not only the normal folders that you can with some of the other assets, but also things like repositories and document types. Okay. You can, of course, have folders and subfolders to keep things organized with your different assets. They might have some different names, but the concept will remain. Along with document types, we also have things like web content structures, and these allow you to determine what information needs to show up in your web content. Okay. Each asset has a corresponding widget, and then you have some special tools like the Asset Publisher that allow you to select what kinds of assets you want to display and how you want to display them. All right, so in this next section, what we're going to do is we are going to create some content for the Livingston Hotels and Resorts. Okay, we'll create some web content, look at some packages available, and then we'll also take a look at fragments as well and how to display fragments on our pages. All right, so let's dive right in.